emotional intelligence be taught? The big answer to that is yes, it can absolutely be taught. The problem is, we don't teach it at school. We are getting better at it. And my eldest daughter in her last year of school did something called citizenship classes, where they started to go into psychology of the brain and how you talk to yourself and stuff like that. And but we don't teach it from an early age. We don't teach it to children and so on and so on. What we tend to teach are IQ things rather than EQ things at school. But the great news is yes, you can grow your emotional intelligence level. In fact, there was a study done by a body called Very Well Mind. That's what the body is, and they actually did this with children, and they tested it, and 50% of children that were enrolled onto SEL lessons, which is social and emotional learning. Okay, so learning about themselves, learning about other people, learning about social environments, communication and everything else. 50% of the children, 40% of them had improved grades. Okay, so their IQ increased along with the EIQ. Okay, there was lower suspension rates in the school, there was increased attendance in the school, and there was reduced disciplinaries in the school. And that's because people learn about themselves and how their behaviour impacts other people. Because we don't always realise that, do we? Sometimes we go through our day, we do our thing. Especially, again, pardon the pun, if you're a high red, sometimes you go at 1,000,000 miles an hour and you don't always see what else is around you as well. So all of this stuff, I mean, that's a test of children. You know, as adults, we have more awareness than children, hopefully, not everybody, to be fair. But the fact is, you can grow your emotional intelligence. That's the key. And if you do that, you're likely to understand people better, understand yourself better, be more empathetic, more people will help you, and you'll be able to influence. It's about, you've got to show the right behaviours in order to get the right behaviours of other people. So just bear that in mind, because that was part of the survey that was done with children, teaching children. That was part of it, that the teachers showed those behaviours. Exactly the same in business. If you're a leader, you have to show those behaviours. If you are not a leader, you still have to show those behaviours. For instance, delivery, care, agility, all your values that you've got in there. If those are the company values, we have to show those behaviours. Yeah? You might be thinking, well, how do you show care? Well, quite easily. You just make sure you do the right thing with people. You treat people in the right way. You treat people with respect. You don't lose your temper. All that type, whether it's internal or external, doesn't really matter. So realistically, I know you've probably got your 5 or 6 values that you could tell me what they are, but actually what sits under those values? What are the behaviours? And again, vitally important with emotional intelligence, because if you want to influence other people and you're not showing those behaviours, then you're going to struggle. You're going to struggle to influence them unless you use authority, and that doesn't really work short term, and it's long term, and it certainly doesn't motivate people at the same time. So they modelled positive behaviours. They encouraged people to think about their feelings and other people's feelings. Now, that's not very British, is it? You know, I've said this a number of times. You know, keep calm and carry on. We don't often talk about feelings. There's 2 main reasons we don't talk about feelings. The first one is we're scared of whatever the answer's going to be. You know, if somebody goes, you know, tell me how you're feeling, what's going on, and all of a sudden they do, we don't really know how to deal with that sometimes. But also, we're British as well, so we don't really talk about them. It's part of the culture. It is getting a bit better. But remember, there are chemicals in your system over 300 times more powerful than morphine. Those chemicals are emotions. It is important that we talk about feelings, and people know how you want them to feel, and when they're not feeling great, that they can share that, and you can help them change those emotions. It all adds up to increasing emotional intelligence. That's what it all. If we stay away from feelings, then our EQ stays low. By talking about them, understanding them, we have to increase them. And it is self-education. That's one of the top tips I'm going to give you today. What is it that you can do weekly that will increase your emotional intelligence level? We'll talk about that a little bit later. Loads of stuff you can do, okay? Showing more empathy. making a conscious effort to try and be more understanding and see other people's points of view. That also increases your emotional intelligence. On the occasion that I've done that and I've sat back and understood somebody else's point of view fully before making a decision or jumping in, actually it served me quite well. I've been able to make a more informed choice, and it's educated me at the same time. Okay? Now don't get me wrong, look, there's times in business where you want to be empathetic and there's times that you don't. You know, if the fire alarm's going off, don't ask somebody how they're feeling about, you know, the fire alarm going off. Tell them to get out the building. Okay? So you've got to use this in the right way. Yeah? If it's business or health and safety critical, if it's critical, then people need to follow logical instructions, don't they? After the fact, you might need to help them with the shock and everything else, and that's where the empathy would come in. But a lot of the times, things aren't business critical, and we can be a little bit more empathetic, understand people's feelings a little bit more, understand our own feelings. You know, if you're feeling a bit annoyed at the moment, you know, when you've had one of those days where you go, do you know what, I've just been ratty all day today. Instead of just leaving it there, I've been ratty all day, follow it on with, I've been ratty all day. What caused that? What was it that was causing that? Try and do a bit of root cause analysis and find out what was generating that emotion, so you're able to then deal with it or change it in the future if you choose to. Okay? And it is a choice, this, guys. I'm not throwing all this at you today going, you've got to do this, you should do this. It's all a choice, guys. I'm not in control of your feelings, which was the point that I made at the beginning of today's session, excuse me. However, in a business sense, I think we all have a certain responsibility to understand other people's points of view as and when we can, to make sure that we can all work together collectively to get the team and the company output.